Welcome to the exploration of consciousness.
Welcome back to the exploration of consciousness. I'm your host, Matt Presti. It's good to be back on the airwaves in this new format for the TEC series. Today I am having guests Mike Hagan and John Sheliak on the show, and we are going to discuss a plethora of topics from COVID-19 to the Great Reset. Okay, so I want you guys to check it out, enjoy it, sit back, and share this with your friends, with people you think might be interested in it. This is, again, episode 1 of many to come, and this format is not limited to any particular style or particular topic. I will create these shows at my leisure on any topic I so choose, and I may even consider topics that guests suggest, as well as people who follow me on social media. You can check out my social media at t.me/Matt Presti. That's my Telegram. You can check me out at rumble.com/Matt Presti. I am not uploading this particular series to YouTube because I know it would get banned. This first episode would get banned, and you'll see why. So sit back, enjoy it. Thanks for spreading the word. I appreciate you. See you soon. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Matt Presti, host of the Exploration of Consciousness. It's my honor to welcome to the show. Welcome back, actually. As I mentioned previously, laid this show down for several years and decided to pick it back up. But two guests that I had on back in the day, Mr. Mike Hagan, who's the host of RadiOrbit, which was a show that ran on KOPN, Columbia, Missouri. He's a real broadcaster, somebody, not a podcaster, but an actual FM broadcaster. And he's been with us for a long time. I'll let each of these guys give their own intros. I'm just going to introduce them shortly, though. And then we have the amazing Mr. John Sheliak, a theoretical mathematician and physicist, incredible guy who I got to meet several times in person. And anyways, guys, welcome back. And we'll let Mike start with a little intro if you'd like.
Hey, Matthew. Thank you so much. First of all, great to be back talking with you in something other than a sort of informal context. We do that often enough, but although not recently, frankly. I've been sort of keeping a pretty low profile. But anyway, thank you for having me. It's great to see both you and John again. Very close friends, no matter how long it's been since we've talked. And yeah, I really don't have anything to say other than what you did. I've done some broadcasting. I still do a sort of lighthearted show on the radio, on the actual FM broadcast band. But yeah, the podcast that I did is all out there. It's been there for many years, and I just leave the archives there. I think it's pretty much a completed project. So if you're looking for me, MikeHagan.com, that's it. Yeah, say hi to John.
And over to you, John.
Yeah, John Sheliak. Currently an American living in Slovakia. My former life in the U.S., I was practicing physics at Los Alamos National Laboratory in the initial fusion energy program. Then moved slightly to San Diego for a few months, and then back to Santa Fe, where I was doing technical work for Santa Fe Science and Technology, a variety of projects. And since I've been in Slovakia, most of my technical work has been connected with another Slovak engineer scientist, kind of exploring some of the things that he's interested in. One of which is something that is akin to McKenna's time wave concept, but much more mathematically and theoretically rigorous, based on complex systems, promotions, ideas, etc. golden mean spirals and that kind of thing. So I have weekly conversations with this friend, and hopefully at some point we'll have something to report.
Good deal. Well, welcome to both of you gentlemen. It's great to see you both in this context, and we've all kind of sort of watched this world unfold into a very strange entity of its own. But we're going to get into much of that in terms of that discussion. But yeah, I'm here in Salem, Missouri. I've been here since 2002, and I'll just say this much: it's no easy thing to remain sane when the rest of the world seems to have gone insane. But if you're feeling any anxiety, if you're feeling any stress over the situation, folks out there, that means you are sane. So take that as a badge of honor. Well, let's jump right into it, gentlemen. We can talk about COVID. We can talk about 9/11, trauma-based mind control, and the current state of science, but it sort of all ties together. Mike, I know you did an incredible interview with Paul Laffoley. We talked yesterday briefly about that, and I'm actually going to drop that clip into the editing portion of this and play it. So
yeah, I after you and I talked, I thought, man, I want to listen to that clip again, at least the first one, and I sent that to you earlier today, and it is interesting to listen to that again for sure. And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but yeah, like I said to you yesterday, I've never got a sufficient answer to that the questions that were raised by that very short clip of a longer interview. So
yeah, I posted the excerpt on my Telegram, got a couple good bits of feedback on it, and basically I asked, would you want to continue to work in a high rise if you knew it was wired with explosives? Just thinking out loud.
Right.
So Laffoley goes on to say that he had worked for Emery Roth and Sons, and he met the Bin Ladens who came to visit in the offices. This is back in the 60s. And
if people who aren't familiar with the background of the Bin Laden family, they're a huge construction conglomerate based out of Saudi Arabia, and in the 60s, in the 50s, through even into the 80s, and probably even into the 90s, they were still doing that. Osama bin Laden had been essentially, he was someone who didn't fit well into the family mold, and he was sort of a maverick, and didn't really get involved in the construction business that his family was involved in. But as a very important note, the Bin Laden construction firm was involved in the construction of the World Trade Center, believe it or not. As crazy as that sounds, it's actually true. And Yamasaki, the Japanese architect who was in charge of the actual design of the World Trade Center, through Emery Roth and Sons, who was the architect of note in New York City, and one of the most famous architectural firms in the history of this country, frankly. And Laffoley worked for them, and had a role on the design team for the World Trade Centers. And again, this is all absolutely verifiable, stuff, isn't it? But at any rate, Yamasaki had done work with the Bin Laden family historically. They had the World Trade Center wasn't the only project that was happening in the world. There were lots of large construction projects, lots of big high-rise sort of skyscraper projects. All the big architectural firms were trying to compete to see who could get the biggest one up first and have the tallest one. And Yamasaki was right in the middle of that whole business, and so was the Bin Laden construction family. So, but yeah, they were there in New York apparently, and I mean, it wasn't any big thing back then. I mean, it wouldn't be, because they were part of the project.
Right. And the stunning revelation from that interview is, Laffoley says that one of the Bin Ladens asked him, where would we place explosives if we wanted to bring down the building? And then he goes on to just expound upon that and say that it became standard procedure to wire buildings in that period of New York City construction, because it was so crowded, that they would build these buildings and pre-wire them with explosives. That's an incredible admission. So yeah, that's an amazing thing. But as we know, 9/11 eventually, happens. It's a big number 11. I know Lafley wanted to do cross-connecting walkways between the two buildings, which is what got him fired, because Yamasaki, was it, Michael?
Yeah, that's exactly true. He
didn't he wanted this big number 11, which Lafley says is the worst number you could have because it symbolizes the number of destruction in numerology.
Right. Well, I think there was some, I think there's some historical evidence that shows that those two buildings were actually sort of also designed after David Rockefeller's kids, I think. Right, one was supposed to be Nelson, and one was supposed to be. Maybe I'm getting the names wrong, but the eldest of the Rockefeller family had two sons, the older son and a younger son, and I believe that the World Trade Centers were designed essentially as, maybe as an honorarium almost to his two children. But regardless, Yamasaki had that design in mind, and the idea to connect the two towers, which actually made great sense when it comes to a structural consideration. If you have two towers and you connect them every 5 floors with a cross piece, you would almost see like a ladder if you were looking at it from a distance. But clearly, that would make the both buildings much more sturdy from a structural sense. And then and that was his idea, was to make them, make it tougher, and also open up a whole bunch of open space in between the buildings on each one of those levels that had a cross floor, and you could use those as really open space for offices or whatever. One of the big problems in large skyscraper high rises is that the elevator shafts take up so much room. That it really eliminates a lot of the square footage on each floor, on every single floor, because if you've got a bank of 12 elevators, I mean, it's a very large, it's big, and it, like I said, it eliminates that rentable space in the building. So Paul thought that was a great idea. He said, well, we'll give them a whole bunch more rentable space, and we'll also solidify the structure. And he presented that to to the guys that he worked for, and of course they told him that wasn't his charge, and
right.
he needed to follow closely, with the actual instructions, and eventually he lost his job over it. So yeah.
Right. So one more real quick thing, I watched a couple presentations on gematria, which is numerology of 9/11, and the number 11 itself is binary, which you could say is male and female, and they sort of launched the whole transgender thing after the destruction of the towers.
Interesting.
They replaced it. They destroyed the binary basically in plain sight. You want to borrow a term, and then they replaced it with a unitower, being, there's the upward triangle and the downward pointing triangle, which sort of represents a fusion of the binary into a transfusion of sorts, if you will. Very interesting stuff. But John, you got any thoughts on that?
Well, it's something I hadn't thought about. I was just thinking when you said binary, number 11 happens to be my birth date, so. It also, I think the binary equivalent of 11 is 3, so when you convert 1 binary into digital, 3.
Interesting. Hey, Matt, I've got one more comment if I could.
Sure.
I've thought a lot about this over the years. That was 2007, I think, when Paul and I were talking about this stuff. And, I'm not sure, I really wouldn't make any claims to say what, if the people that flew the planes into the building actually knew anything about what we're talking about. But I have thought that it was possible that building 7 has always caused me a lot of trouble.
Indeed.
And never again, we've never really gotten a satisfactory answer for that either. But after thinking a lot about what Lafferty revealed, I was thinking that it was possible that whoever flew those planes into the Trade Center, whether it was bin Laden or not, they may have been completely unaware of the fact that building was built the way that it was, and by that I mean with charges built into the structure. It may have been something that when the planes actually impacted, that they somehow triggered the system, is what I've thought maybe, and that there was some sort of a electronic intervention that happened either by chance when the planes hit the towers or perhaps on purpose. But that I thought could possibly explain building 7, because they would all be perhaps connected to the same system, and it all went haywire at the same time, and they all came down perhaps. Again, I'm totally speculating because I've never had anyone give me a satisfactory answer to this stuff. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. So
Sure.
It is interesting that seems piece by piece, the hologram's beginning to reveal itself.
Man, oh man.
It is. And, when they lit up the New York Empire State Building for COVID with that giant red flashing eye of Sauron in the middle of New York on a misty night.
Also looks just like a vaccination needle too, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're definitely capitalists when it comes to trauma and mind control.
Well, and symbolism.
Yeah.
And symbolism. They're very good at it.
Right. And that leads us to COVID. I know, John, you're on fire, dude.
I think we should have John, pardon me, but I'd love to hear John give us a little bit of perspective at some point about the situation there in Eastern Europe compared to what we're hearing and experiencing over here, Matt.
For sure. So John, why don't you take it away and just, give us a little background on that to start.
On what? On which feature?
Well, we'll start with the conditions in Slovakia, what you're experiencing personally.
Conditions here are like in the rest of the EU. We have, I wouldn't call it leadership. We have the dominator culture, the rulers who are complete vassals to the US empire. And what they're doing is it's destroying their own cultures and economies in deference to US policy and demands. So Slovakia is no different. Government here is now highly unpopular. There was something that happened in the Slovak government that normally would have brought the government down, but the government, this government refused to go. The president, which is another feature of governments here, not directly involved in governing issues, but able to support or veto some policies that come from the parliamentary government. They've all refused to disappear, as apparently is legal and justified by the parliamentary government that's here. So what that means, it's interesting for me because these European governments were put in place before all of the shit hit the fan, almost as though it was planned that way, because when they're in power for 4 years, there's often little the populations can do to get them out of power. So they were put in power at the right place, and then whoops, COVID, Ukraine war, everything just unfolded that essentially makes the population powerless in any meaningful way. We're effectively in a war zone here, not directly in the military conflict, but economically, culturally, in many ways. It's it's a challenging place to be right now for me. Fortunately, I have two places of residence here, one in the north and one in the south. And both are relatively rural. So not in the midst of the worst of the cultural shit that's going on.
Yeah, and you could say this really is a war on perception worldwide. And it's,
Oh, absolutely. It's
there's a need to control the narrative, if you will.
Well,
yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I mean, that seems like, I mean, back to 9/11, there was a huge and successful effort, to control the narrative. That was, and that was 20 years ago, before they really had the tools to really get good at it. I think the COVID narrative was controlled even to a greater degree than anything we've seen before, in my opinion, globally. I think that pretty much for every country, or at least, I mean, it seems like that's the story. I mean, I wasn't in every country, so again, it's really hard to say what's happening in other places, because you hear so much stuff that's untrue or difficult to verify. But yeah, it was such a globally, everybody went right along. That's what surprised me. It seemed like it was very coordinated, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Coordinated between essentially every government on the planet. Which I think now we're starting to understand that it really was coordinated, and whether it's the WEF and Klaus Schwab and that gang, or whether there's other groups behind them, or other groups in general, or whatever, the infiltration of those groups, the globalists and the essentially control freak technocrats, they really have. I'm stunned, frankly, to see and then frightened, frankly, because the success that they had with this COVID operation was, I mean, it was very, very successful. Now we're seeing all kinds of stuff come out, questioning it. Yeah, the Twitter files. I'm not sure if you're following all that stuff, but Lord have mercy. I mean, good grief. The level of control that was successfully implemented over all social media. Twitter is the one that came out, and people say whatever they want to say about Elon Musk, but I'm sure glad that he did what he did, and I don't know, maybe he's got another agenda, maybe he's not who he seems to be, whatever. But we certainly learned a lot from what's been revealed on the Twitter files in the last couple of weeks, and I think the most important thing is to understand that it wasn't just Twitter. It was Microsoft, Google, Apple, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, all. I mean, maybe Telegram. Who knows? I mean, it seems
they're all in cahoots, right?
Yeah, I mean, so to me, I mean, it's a crisis. I mean, we should be flying the flags upside down. I mean, the government and all the people that work for it have clearly been compromised. And I'm not saying there aren't good people out there, but they're being ineffectual, right now. Although, like I say, we are making some progress on the information front, maybe. So I don't know, man.
Hey, did you guys get your 2-record set of Klaus Schwab sings the Christmas carols?
No.
Is that a real thing?
No, it's a meme, but I just wanted to say that, when Elon carried the sink into Twitter headquarters, he's like, I'm bringing the fucking kitchen sink too, guys. Usually it's but the kitchen.
Yeah, and he actually brought the kitchen sink. Yeah, that was interesting.
A lot of people have their views of Musk, but you got to look at fruits, people, right?
That's right.
That's the way you tell. But I mean, we wouldn't know any of this stuff if it wasn't for him. So,
and
well, we knew it, but now it's confirmed.
Yeah,
and that's actually funny, because I saw, I forget who he was talking to, but I saw a really brief interview with Elon Musk, and he made a comment. He said, yeah, he said pretty much pretty much every conspiracy that people were talking about with regard to Twitter and social media, he said, pretty much they all were true. He said, in fact, I'm not sure that I heard one that wasn't true. And that comes from the guy himself. I mean, and he just talks about it very casually. I love it. I think it's funny.
A little commentary. Go ahead.
Say, what's the old saying? I need some new conspiracies because all my old ones came true.
Yeah. I mean, that used to be funny. It's so true now. I mean, it's really remarkable.
Yeah, for sure.
But,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was just make a few comments concerning COVID. Initially, I was all in, like, okay, this is real. And it took a few months for me. Whoops.
I'm just sharing that real quick.
Okay. It took a few months, but as soon as they rolled out the vax, after having only been in development 6 months, I said, that's it. There's something going on here. And from that moment on, it was all over. And, I was well in digging for information that revealed what was actually going on. And in that process, I think it was just digging for information on the COVID origins as well as the vax, led me to what the WEF was doing. Obviously they were there before. And I think, when you think of WEF, they're the organizational structure of the power, planetary power structure, basically. But my God, they have their own military. How many 5,000 troops in Davos?
The same one as the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Swiss militaries.
Yeah. So, which is another, another, for me, obvious connection. That the Antichrist itself is, we know more about that, I think, than ever before.
Well, John, you continue to just, you're like a sponge. You're taking in all this. So you've posted in our little private Telegram chat room a ton of links. And I'm sure you've taken these videos and a lot of different people from Scott Ritter to Dr. Malone and everybody else. So where are you at with all of this? If you were to boil this all down, what do you think? Give us a bit of the Sheliak zone view of the whole COVID operation and where we're heading.
Yeah, it's interesting, Matt, because we're all virtually 24/7. We have so much information coming at us from every direction. What that is telling me is that we are indeed in this chaos phase. If you want to use complex systems, or if you like to use the imagery of caterpillar to butterfly, we're in that place where what we're experiencing now is chaotic. It's totally chaotic. The amount of information coming from everywhere, that essentially doesn't all form a coherent pattern. Although, I try to form the pattern by saying, okay, think of this as WF endgame, and use Occam's razor, to try to pull it all together, because there's so much coming in, to try to sort of attach meanings and explanations for every individual thing is crazy, because I don't think there is. I think ultimately there's one explanation, and you have to use Occam's razor. That means that all things being equal, the simplest explanation tends to be the correct one. That's why I tend to focus on WEF a lot and what it actually is, because ultimately that's where the battle is going to have to be won or lost. Here, the COVID thing was crazy. You mentioned, starting working, getting back to the gym, and I was doing that regularly 2 or 3 times a week. COVID hit, came to a screeching halt for 2 years. essentially. So, that's part of the experience of when I think of that, I think, okay, why? What were they doing during that period? They're injecting, hundreds of thousands of people, but what else are they doing? They're cutting us off from the things that strengthen us, that uplift us, that connect us with others, in a fundamental way. And when I start seeing all of this going on, and the fact that the injections were essentially a fraud intended to do something entirely different, than combat the virus itself. I started looking, for as much information as I could that would help me gain some level of understanding of what this chaos is all about. And so I think for me, I think personally and collectively, we're in this chaos phase. And I describe that, I say, okay, what does that look and feel like? And for me, it's radical instability and radical uncertainty. That for me is how any of us would experience, a state of chaos. But another thing that is clear, has become clear to me, is what happens in the chaotic phase in a caterpillar and butterfly metamorphosis. Well, the caterpillar is dissolving, and turning into some kind of goo. And new cells are forming, but if you were one of those cells forming in that environment and looked around, it would be completely chaotic. You have no way of knowing what's going on. But you know one thing, that you have to connect with others like you. That's all you know.
It looked like we see today.
Yeah, right. And the whole COVID thing, people who I once thought were close friends, just like.
That leads me to my next question. I was actually going to
Yeah.
ask for each of you to answer, but you can go ahead and take this, John. But how did the COVID thing affect you guys personally when it comes to friends and family?
Well, for me, it separated me from many people who I thought were close friends, especially those who were saying that we're not accepting any unvaccinated people as visitors, only vaxxed. Well, I wonder how that feels now, folks. And I had one, who was a friend on Facebook. She was also a longtime friend over many years. Not challenge what I was posting, but came on and effectively gaslighted me about about what I was posting in general, as well as God, I can't think of the word right now, but essentially just criticizing me for posting what I was posting, rather than come on and point by point offer me alternative explanations, fact-based explanations for what I was posting. That didn't happen.
Ad hoc.
It was all ad hominem attack, and gaslighting. That was it. And when I thought, my God, this was a person who was highly educated, and what the hell happened? And the same with other friends. The same with friends who were saying, we're not accepting anybody but vaccinated as visitors now. What the hell, are highly educated thinking people doing, Right. So for me, it was like, okay, it's not where I am. And if that's your choice, have it.
Right. How about you, Mike?
Mine was a little bit different because, first of all, I'm, where I live and in the community here, I'm pretty actively involved in the community here in Columbia. And, so I had to kind of play it both ways, to be honest. I tried I tried my best not to really take any high ground, or I basically just told people that my position was, first of all, your medical status is not my fucking business. I don't care if you're vaccinated I don't care what is going on, what you're doing medically. I have no interest in it, and I'm certainly not going to ask. And I still feel that no one should ask me. And that I pretty much held that line the whole time. But that if people asked me, I'd say it was none of their business. And if there was a conversation about it, I would try to say, hey, look, obviously it's a brand new thing. They just came out with it. Every other vaccine over the course of history has taken a lot longer. I just tried to raise some questions and say, maybe it's great. Maybe it'll work for everyone. Maybe it won't. But I was just trying to, try to talk reasonably to people about just, trying to understand a little bit about what they were doing before they did it. I think that, we were talking about 9/11 before, and I see a lot of similarities actually in the way that it was played from the media and from the control of the government agencies, et cetera, because fear was the primary, tool that was used. And I think that one thing that I learned in 9/11 was it was very much like COVID. If you said that there was something that was going on, that wasn't the party line with regard to what happened to the trade towers, man, you got talked down to like you got talked down to if you didn't get the COVID not vaccine, whatever the hell it is, but it's not a vaccine. We know that they changed the definition of vaccine right in the middle of it. It's like The Simpsons. I mean, it's so ridiculous, some of the stuff they do. And people are just like, oh yeah, so they just changed the vaccine definition. It's only been that way for 100 years or whatever. It's ridiculous, right? But anyway, I think what it comes down to for me is that Mark Twain quote. Maybe it's not a quote. Maybe I'm just paraphrasing, but it was something like, it's easier to fool someone than it is to convince them that they've been fooled.
Yeah, it's Mark Twain.
Yeah, exactly.
And that I think that the social engineers, the people who are behind these big programs of misinformation and control mechanisms, I think that they understand that very well. That you can convince somebody of something. And they're going to hold on to it. They're going to hold on to it, even if it's wrong, because they don't want to have to swallow the bitter pill that they were actually wrong, that they had been fooled. And I think we're seeing that to a certain extent right now with all of the data that's coming out about Pfizer and Moderna shots and the side effects. Clearly, we were misled. Is a very pretty nice way to put it. And I still think you're going to see people go to their grave and get that booster, because it's easier to do that for them than to admit that they took 4 boosters, that they literally put themselves at risk. You know what I mean? And now we're seeing people, dropping a lot of heart attacks. I mean, you hear both sides of it. You hear people say, oh, it's just, there's no more people dying than ever. But the other people say, yeah, there are a lot more people dying, unknown causes. And, talk about John, the information just coming like crazy. It's like, honestly, when it comes to that type of stuff, it's very difficult to know the truth.
Yeah, it brings to mind another quote by Mark Twain. It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. Right. And then this one, Love 'Em or Hate 'Em from Ted Nugent. I'll share the screen here. The audience.
I love Ted
Nugent. He says, I can't imagine what it must feel like watching people dropping dead every day while knowing the same poison is flowing through your veins. That's a come to Jesus quote right there.
Yeah. Well, and it is weird because I mean, I know a lot of people that have gotten the COVID shots. And I do know a few that have been injured, but not all of them have been. It's a weird game of numbers, because a very small percentage of a very large number is a huge number. You know what I mean? So, I mean, if you've got, a billion people that have had these shots, and it may not be, my point is that when you're in the community, it may not be that obvious, because there's so many people, that if a few extra are dying, unless they're close to you, you're really not going to pick up on it. And I think that the media they're very happy that that's the case, because it's not one of these things where everybody is dying. You know what I mean? So there's a plausible deniability that you're going to see, true or not, from all of the vaccine manufacturers, the CDC, the WHO, all the people that have been pushing this so hard. Even if the numbers are really high, they're not high enough quite yet to get everybody's attention. You know what I'm saying?
Well, one in 1,000 is pretty damn high, though, and that's what we know right now, or maybe even 1 in 700. So, and we're not even into the long-term effects, Mike.
Right. I agree with that. Yeah, it could get way worse.
Yes, right.
One of the positive notes, statistically speaking, less than 10% are right around there are actually up to date on their boosters and stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I think we were also probably misled when it came to how many people actually did get fully vaccinated and then continue to do it. Like you say, Matt, to continue to get booster after booster. I think a significant percentage got those first two, because it was
the first one was 70-something%. The second was around 30.
Well, wasn't the first one a 1-2 combo, right? You had to get one and then another one within 2 weeks.
Yep. And I think that dropped by half.
Really?
In the United States, strictly.
Huh. Wow.
But, so
they're also different doses. They didn't dose everybody the same. And in fact, there was a whistleblower here in Europe from Slovenia, I think, who was reporting that the politicians in Slovenia were just getting saline.
Yeah, there was some. I was going to ask if there was any way to know, because typically you would do that too in a trial of any kind. You want to have a control group, whatever. So yeah, so there's. I mean, do either of you know? I mean,
I was going to actually ask that to John. John, have you come across any information that describes, how many of
no, but what
did they even admit it? I mean, did Pfizer or Moderna say, "Oh yes, a certain percentage of the shots are actually just saline"? Is that even a thing?
I don't know. I don't know anything about that report that came from Slovenia, and how this is somebody who apparently works in a government, some government organization who reported that. But I often wondered, are politicians and elite really getting the jab, or are they getting saline? In addition, are they using the entire human population, where they're generating deliberate control groups versus injected groups? For the entire human population, so they know exactly where the saline went and who and they know where
Yeah, because if they did that like regionally, it would be pretty easy to do it. If you just pick a region, you don't have to know the individuals. You just pick a region, and that's what you distribute to that particular region.
Yeah,
I had heard, guys, from a report. I can't recall where it had come from, but that they were sending the actual majority of these so-called mRNA vaccines to rural areas, especially areas that had a high concentration of Trump supporters. I'd have to try to dig that up, but that
Right.
was an actual article where they showed that demographically speaking, higher infection rates of COVID and deaths occurred amongst these rural areas, which is an interesting point.
Huh.
I mean, we don't know what's really going on, but again, it's one of the things that we had this perspective 2 years ago. We didn't know, but we had a feeling for what was going on. Now
Right.
we know that was going on, so we don't know. But
Right.
it's one way of explaining the variation in side effects and deaths and all of that. Perhaps that's something that might be revealed in the future. We'll see.
Right.
But even Pfizer's test data that was forced out of their hands by a lawsuit, they wanted to hold on to it for 75 years, is
Right.
revealing that it was never like they claimed it was from the beginning. Never.
Right. And and I would add, John, that that's what I'm seeing a lot of people talking about, is that, look, there's criminal stuff that has happened here, and there should be prosecutions, but
are we there? Are we really there? Or are we
I wanted to
get
ask
there,
you guys about that. What do you think of Nuremberg 2? What do you think of
Right
Nuremberg
now,
2?
I say not a chance on God's green earth at this point. I think that's pie in the sky, so ridiculous that the only Nuremberg 2 we're going to have is the three of us sitting around talking about it, or any three other people. But it ain't going to happen in any meaningful way, at least not with the global hierarchy set up the way that it is right now. Not a chance, as far as I'm concerned.
One interesting development that came out recently, John, you could probably speak to this. The CDC admitted just a couple days ago that there are, in fact, strokes associated with the shot. It seems to me like people within these organizations, within these agencies, they're not really organizations, they're top-down run agencies.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And they're getting cold feet. I think
well, maybe they're trying to ass cover too.
They're scared. This is what now you've got the CDC and the NIH are basically blaming the pharmaceutical companies, and they're beginning to turn on each other. And this is a true sign, I think, from a psychological angle, that you can tell there's some shit about to hit the fan, I guess.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right about that, because there ought to be.
You want to give some more info on that?
It's certainly justified, but one of the things we have to think about, this is a complex system in chaos. And there's no way, no matter how much we know about the system going in, there's no way for us to know what the trajectory out is going to be, or what the end state is going to be. We can speculate all day, and I think many of us think that Nuremberg 2 is certainly justified, given what we already know, and we only know how small part of everything. But we're still in this, chaos phase of a complex system, and so, we can speculate all day about the trajectory out of this, but none of us really knows. Even those who think they know and who think they have control of it.
So it's a free fire zone. Anything is still possible.
It is.
Yeah.
Certainly is. That's going to lead us into our next topic, and it all more or less ties together. But the WEF, Davos, is having their meeting here starting shortly. I think it starts tomorrow, if I'm right, runs for a week. They've got 5,000 highly trained Swiss Guard protecting their meeting from the rest of us out here.
Right.
And, Klaus Schwab is going to sing the hits, I hear, on Saturday night. Make sure you get his double album on the Christmas songs, people. I mean, you got to support the effort, right? But yeah, what do you guys think about the whole WEF thing? I know John refers to it as a stench. There's a great word.
I like to say, what we're seeing is the WEF endgame, or what they're doing is reeking with WEF stench, because that's how I feel about it. It's like, and Schwab himself, you couldn't have a better image of something totally Nazi and disgusting,
An
by
absolute
his
bona
language,
fide-
alone.
a bona fide Bond villain, if there ever was one.
It's amazing. It's
Yeah, and even Rogan, has commented on that. Anybody who's thinking about it looks at this guy, and on the surface you think, this can't be real. This is so ridiculous. But dig deeper, and you find, who's his Israeli henchman. I've forgotten his name. I can never pronounce his name.
Dr.
And his
Yuval Harari.
Yeah, and his and apparently his boyfriend.
Harari.
When you listen to what they have to say, these people believe, first of all, that they're going to be able to create this world, this transhuman world. But also, they're not afraid. They're not at all concerned about population uprising. They're not at all concerned about any form of rebellion to challenge that. They're that confident.
He's sort of the poster child for beware of the person that believes their own bullshit, right?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
There's no more dangerous person in the world than someone who believes their own.
Well, and unfortunately, there are a lot of other people that believe his bullshit too, or at least the agenda of the WEF that I was mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I'm stunned by the level of infiltration that organization has had globally.
Yes.
And that's something to really be concerned about. But I also think that there's a much higher level of awareness now too about the WEF and Davos and all this stuff. The social media really has, I think, I mean, like you say, Klaus Schwab, he's so easy to make, he's so easy to meme, and
yes.
Though I guess that's one really effective way to move information now, or at least to kind of communicate a mindset, perhaps. So I think there's a lot of awareness of the WEF. I don't know if people take it that seriously. I think perhaps that maybe it's more serious than people think, because I think even at the local level, you probably have people that are pushing Agenda 21, Agenda 30, those goals. And I don't think enough people realize that those are real things that have been codified in books, and there really is an effort, to, for better or worse, a lot of people think that there's too many people on the planet, and that they can come up with an acceptable number of humans that will make it all okay. It's funny because there's another side of that coin. There are people that say, we're in a population decline, that we're as a species, we'll be lucky if we can get out of it,
Right.
because there's so few of us, and we're not procreating fast enough. Again, that'd be funny to hear a debate on a couple of people that argue those things. But the WEF for sure is a real concern. They have a great deal of stroke in large corporations and in most governments, it seems like. We haven't said much about the whole Ukraine business, but as big of a jerk as Vladimir Putin may or may not be, I don't know the man. I don't know anything really about him other than what I've read or that I've heard through historical references. So right now, it appears that he's not a very good person. Everybody talks very badly about him. But I can tell you this, he's about the only world leader that I know that has been opposing the globalist WEF agenda.
World order. Yeah.
Yes. And so, take that for what it's worth. That I see that as a pretty obvious fact,
Very different perspective on Putin here. All you do is have to listen to what he has to say. And he's the only fucking world leader who speaks clearly and succinctly and with ideas that you understand and that make sense.
Yes. I agree.
And he's even said that he's even called out the West, the collective West,
Yes.
for the things that we are now criticizing it for, and for the trans stuff, for the woke stuff, for the demonic behavior.
Did you see that government-sponsored Russian TV commercial where Santa Claus came down the chimney, and there's a couple kids living with two gay men, and they were like, I guess, trying to turn the kid trans or something. Well, Santa took the two gay men away and replaced them with a mom and a dad. And that was what the kid got for Christmas.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
geez.
Yeah.
Anyways, they need the WF definitely could use a better advertising agency.
Yeah. Their image is
really
not good.
When you got Jimmy Fallon and Stephen, what's his name, Colbert, dancing with people in needle outfits on the TV.
I mean, the cringe level. It's when I see this stuff, it's like that Jimmy Fallon. You can almost see the strings with him when he's up there dancing and doing his thing. It's again, I can't. It's like we shifted into clown world, like some people call it. It is clown world. It's unbelievable.
Yep. Like John says, with the transformation of caterpillar into butterfly, when these imaginal cells, which are basically the people that are waking up and have been awake to this stuff for a long time. I know you guys, man, some of the conversations we had in 2007, we were more or less predicting, the state of the world then, what it was going to be today, only we didn't really have the real descriptors to describe it. We just knew that we were going into this phase of chaos and it was inevitable.
That's right.
But, that leads us to consciousness and the next steps. What are your guys' views on where we're at and what we can do? The way I look at it, and I'll just be honest, I think we're so far into this caterpillar to butterfly process that we are now actually, as Buckminster Fuller would say, you don't change a system by going to war with it. You create a new one that makes the old one obsolete. So it's my firm belief that we are seeing, if you look at John Rich, he's got a new payment system and he opened his own bank. Of course, he's a conservative, that's fine. But he's vowed not to ban anybody, not to block their payment processing. You've got this push toward new payment processors. You've got the push, of course, with the digital currencies of the world. And you've got the push of the central bank currency digital push as well. But so you've really got two emerging systems that are existing simultaneously, which is what I believe creates the chaos, because you can't have both. It's one or the other. Right now, our consciousness is sort of in between. Do I want to stay with the old one? Do I want to move to the new one? The new one isn't large enough yet. It's not focalized enough yet to really bring masses of more people to it. But we are no doubt in the process of seeing a parallel system and civilization emerge. How would you guys frame where our consciousness is now from your own respective locations, and what can people do for helping to make those next steps and help solidify a parallel system that replaces this old defunct one?
Well, even on a geopolitical level, the Ukraine war is part of that. It's part of the breakdown of an old system, unipolar system, into a multipolar system, economically, politically, militarily. In some ways, it's like bifurcation, some kind of bifurcation that will be emerging at the end of all of this, where geopolitically you have multipolarity, and instead of a one world government, like the WF would like to impose, you're going to have something that's very different, more like I kind of envisioned many years ago, where I thought we live in this hierarchical structure that isn't really, and has never really worked very well for everybody. My thought was that organizing on a sort of a lateral, a planar level in certain groups that can work together, and having those groups connect via whatever mechanisms allow them to connect, would be a much more efficient way to organize a civilization than from the top down. In some ways, we may be seeing this happen.
Very interesting.
When it comes to consciousness, again, so many people trying to define that in so many ways, and I still like my perspective that it's bandwidth. The broader the bandwidth, the more information you can take in and integrate into your life process. But as far as what to do, for me, this has become a time when it's most important for me to engage and to bring my best self into my active life. And what that means for me is that throughout the day, we all have this ability, we all are making decisions and choices based on what our life circumstances. A variety of things are coming at us, we're making choices. For me, I always know when those choices are in harmony with what I call my best self or not. The feeling is immediate. If I feel like shit after making a choice, I know I've made a choice that runs against where my best self is. So for me right now, in the midst of all of this going on, that's become a priority, because somehow I have to be able to make the proper choices with this massive amount of information coming, and I'm feeling that the only way I can do that is more as an observer and as my best self, and not the self that tends to get pulled in on an emotional level to everything going on, because there's so much going on now. That just leads to a functional chaos that's impossible to manage or even be creative in.
How about you, Mike?
Well, on the new track front, I think that's the battle right now, because the WEF and that people of that psyche, the people that want one world government and essentially control over all these populations, the central bank digital currency, that's their play. That's the way that they're going to try to put everything together and implement control. Because if they have programmable money and it's all issued from the same place, well, then it doesn't matter how much money you have in your account or in your wallet or whatever, they can control how and where it's spent. And that's, to me, I think that's the end game. I think that's the way they're going to control what they think is a carbon problem and all this stuff. I mean, as ridiculous as it may be, and as there may be arguments, against all of these things, that's what they think, or at least that's what they say they think, and they're going to stick to that in order to try to implement their agenda. So I think that the economic thing is a huge deal. And I am not a fan of cryptocurrency, but I am a huge advocate of Bitcoin. And I separate the two. And I've been learning and working in this digital currency space now for about almost 10 years. About 2013 is when I got into it. You remember me and Dogecoin and all that stuff a long time ago.
Yep.
I was mining Dogecoin on my work computer, in 2013. So I've been reading and listening and watching a lot of stuff develop in this field for a long time. I believe essentially that the larger cryptocurrency space is a diversionary tactic, whether it's meant to be that way or whether it is, or whether it wasn't. It is a diversion from Bitcoin. Everything that you can do with any of these other projects can be done on the Bitcoin blockchain. And for those, I'll summarize it really quickly, because we have a legitimately decentralized currency. That's what Bitcoin is. It has an immutable ledger. It operates without any central authority. No nation state controls it. No group of nation states control it. No group of individuals can control it. It is available to everybody with a cell phone. You don't have to have a permanent address. You don't have to have a social security number. You don't have to have a credit rating. All right. And it is available to everybody. It's the only legitimate alternative I see to CBDCs. And it is built on the largest and most secure computer network on the planet. So there are very few arguments against Bitcoin. All of the energy requirements and all that stuff is just red herrings. It's all horseshit. There's plenty of energy that can be generated to appropriately manage the Bitcoin blockchain. And I think that's it. I think that is the war. I think we're in World War III. I think that it didn't really unfold the way everybody thought that it might, with nuclear weapons flying, although that still seems to be on the table perhaps. But it's not about nation states anymore. World War III is about freedom versus slavery. That's the war. It's freedom. It's freedom versus slavery. And that's that. And anything that I see that moves the freedom needle to the right direction, those are the things that I'm endorsing. And so that's why I think Bitcoin is important. And anything else that can move us more toward freedom and decentralization as opposed to centralized control and power. I think those have proven to be extremely unhealthy. Now we've got plenty of history, plenty of track record to understand how totalitarian control freaks operate. So we don't need that. We need an alternative. On the consciousness side, I couldn't agree with John more. There's so much coming at us all the time. It's difficult to keep your bearings, keep your settings, and keep your compass on the right heading. I still use psilocybin from time to time. I think that's still a tool that should be available, and if for those who understand how to use that, I think it can be helpful. It still is for me. Whatever it is that you can do personally to clear your space and try to maintain your focus and that compass heading, and whatever you got to do it. All three of us have similar techniques and also very different ones. I think we've all done a lot of this stuff together. Matt, I frankly, on the consciousness side, I like hearing you talk about it more than myself or John, for that matter. I think that you have sort of pushed that a little bit further than we might have, and I'd like to hear your position on the question maybe that you just asked us. I'm playing host now, so there.
Yeah, I should make you co-host in the settings here. Yeah, man. You guys have been a huge inspiration for me. I wrote that song, of course, Find the Others. From the time we met, we had the great Kent Stedman who sat in on that quadrupole of intelligent conversation on the deck of your cool house at the Shire there in Columbia. So yeah, man, just great. We're
going to do it again. Mark my words.
I was going to say, before this show's over, we've got to get together again in person. And
well, that includes Sheliak. We're all going to be on that deck together again. I know it.
Don't make us come and kidnap you. But yeah, for sure. Consciousness, guys. Yeah, this is the exploration of consciousness, and it's just one man's consciousness exploring this vast universe. And I can't say enough about it. It's when you look at the whole machine and what's happening with it, and it is like a machine. I like to refer to it as a tractor trailer, and it's only got one wheel left. The damn thing's on fire. There's a 500-foot plume of smoke coming off of it. It's going down the highway with no brakes at 1,000 miles an hour straight toward a brick wall. Now, when that pendulum swings back to hit the brick wall is anybody's guess, but it's every day there's pieces of rubber coming off that last wheel,
Yeah.
which is what's
Indeed.
keeping it moving down the road. So, with the social credit score tied to the digital banking currency, we know the plan, right? Everybody watching this show is probably aware of the plan to some degree or another. For me, the big thing is, what are we going to replace this thing with when it totally collapses? And I've given a lot of thought to digital currency. I'm really glad you brought that up, Mike, because I, looking at all the different kinds out there, it's overwhelming what one, so
Yeah.
I would trust people what Mike says about Bitcoin, and I might even look into investing a little myself. But as to where we're going, how we're going to get there, we need to start really working on number one, basically do a little bit of prepping, folks. Get some food, have enough food that'll last you about a year to 2 years if you need it. Canned goods are always a good option. Get a mouse-proof plastic container and stuff it with 5-pound bags of rice. Get 3 or 4 or 5-pound bags of rice. You can live on a cup of rice and some plantain from your yard if you have to. You're going to get your nutrients. Have some water, and then look into alternative forms of energy, which is what I'm working on personally in my current endeavor, which I'll get into at a different time when it's a little bit safer. But these are all things we can do to prep now. And then when you have that preparation, that little bit of padding so you don't land on your ass, because we're all on this bus together, whether we like it or not. There is no vehicle that's driving parallel to this tractor trailer that we can reach over and get onto it. We're all on this bus, and it's in flames. But for those that are looking outside the windows, breathing in the oxygen while the rest of the thing's on fire, you're going to see when this parallel system pulls up next to this tractor trailer, and you're going to be able to reach over to it and get onto that much quicker than somebody who's sitting in row 9 breathing in all this bullshit is going to be able to. When we show up on a fire call, for instance, and we size up the situation, we're called first responders, not first reactors. Because if we showed up to a fire call and we reacted by running around screaming, "Oh my God, this house is on fire," we wouldn't be able to respond. So get in a response mode, be ready to fight, not flight. And you're going to have a much better time at transferring your consciousness into this new avenue of this new stream that is running parallel with the old stream. So, there's lots of different ways you can do it. Meditation, as you mentioned, Mike, you have your own personal ways and just people. And Mike's not somebody that I group with the classical view of somebody that does psychedelics. This guy is a psychonaut. He's well versed and practiced, and he doesn't do it for light reasons, at a party or, let's get drunk and bang the trash can lid at 3 a.m. because I see the moon looks like a whale. No, this guy's serious about it. You can check his work out at mikehagan.com. He literally went into this as like a scientist exploring, a substance universe. But again, we all have our own views, our own ways of doing things. But these two guys have been, from my beginnings into looking into alternative explanations for the universe, they've been right there. They're kind of like pillars in my life. But just to say this, to finish and conclude with that particular answer to our co-host, it's up to you, folks, and what you do with your consciousness. It's a free will universe. You're free to do whatever you want. You can take the shots. You can tell people to go to hell who have, or you could try to see it, from a more middle of the road perspective. I've got family members myself who took the shots. My best friend took it. His wife wouldn't have stayed married to him if he didn't. And it's a hard place to be, to not want to say things and share memes. And I understand that too, but all you can do at the end of the day is the best that you can do. And if you do your best, you'll always look back on it and go, you know what? It may have turned out this way, but know in your heart, you always did the best you could. And that's enough at the end of the day.
One last comment, Matt.
Sure, absolutely.
Responder was the proper term to be using, because that's what I was referring to. How do we develop the capacity to to respond appropriately to the life circumstances that are coming at us right now. And I think that is important for anyone. But I also wanted to ask everyone, have you had your cricket burgers yet?
You will eat the bugs and be happy.
I'm not looking. Yeah. I'm not looking to have one anytime soon either.
Or cricket chips.
What would you put on that? What kind of seasoning or sauce would go well with a cricket burger?
They're gonna add so much shit to it. They're gonna make it taste, like a beef burger. Who knows? When these, and I borrow the term not lightly but heavily from Deadwood, when these cocksuckers get arrested, they should be forced to eat their own fucking menu. Absolutely. Because
I don't want him to die. I want Klaus Schwab in a jail cell eating insects until he dies.
Absolutely.
3 times a day, 3 meals of this shit. Cocksuckers should eat your own garbage. And Yuval Harari, let's put him in an AI prison.
Let's fill him with chips, with digital chips. Just fill him with it. And how do you like that? And you own nothing. You own nothing, and you're going to be happy. You'll just be nothing but digital chips.
Absolutely.
No, I think having the people who would like to force that on us be the ones who have it forced on them would be justice.
Take your own medicine, you cocksucker.
Oh, you guys are killing me. Well.
It's great to join you all. I want to give you each just a minute or two to round up final thoughts, share your website, share your contact info if you have any. And I want to also thank all those who have supported my work over these years for following us and this reboot of my tech series, the Exploration of Consciousness podcast. This is just the beginning, but it's been a great talk. You guys always are welcome to come back on. In fact, we could do this once a month if you want. Just get together for an hour, shoot the shit, catch up. That's the kind of thing it's going to be, not necessarily a big production every time, but feel free to share any contact info you all have, and we'll start rounding down.
John?
Right now I have no website, but general contact would be jsheliak@gmail.com.
Sounds good. And any final thoughts of your own for
No, I don't have anything specific except, I hope to be able to come return to the US for an extended visit sometime in May. Here's hoping that, the geopolitics will still permit that and the economics will permit it. So.
Well, with as bad as Biden's doing, it's chances are you'll be able to get in the country without a vaccine at that point. So,
well, I'm a citizen, so I can anyway.
Yes.
Amelia can't.
Right. Gotcha.
And she is not about to be injected just to get to the U.S. So we'll see how that unfolds. But it's amazing that they're still able to maintain this. Given what we now know about the injection.
I know.
How in the hell can they still maintain it?
They're still trying to give them to kids 6 months old. It's unbelievable. It's just, I hate to use the word evil, but it is just, I don't know what else to say.
I don't hate it. I don't have trouble using the word evil because I think it's manifest evil at this point. It's beyond just corruption or, poor policy or mistakes. It's some other agenda that I clearly characterize as evil.
Yeah. How about you, Mike?
Okay. A couple quick things. Matt, you mentioned plants and about being prepared. And I was just thinking, you mentioned plantain. Get familiar with the plants that are around your in your backyard, people. There's stuff right there that you don't even know about that you can eat, and it's probably good for you. So I'd say learn about native plants. That's always a good idea. You mentioned Buckminster Fuller too, and he's one of my favorites. And there's a term that I first heard from Fuller, and it's called the Kairos, Kairos, Kairos point. And Kairos point is tipping point, essentially. And I think we're close to being there. Whatever that means, I'm hoping that it means that alternative train is going to pull up next to us pretty soon, and we're going to be able to make the leap from the burning one to the one that's got a little bit more energy left in it. So anyway, I'm hopeful. I love John's perspective that we are in a chaotic and unknown a situation with an unknown outcome, and we can do nothing but the best that we can in order to reach whatever that outcome might finally be. And I think that's what you said so nicely, Matt. So yeah, I mean, we're in it together. You guys, I love you. I can't wait to, I'd love to do this again, Matt. Thank you for including me on this inaugural reboot of your awesome podcast. And I'd love to do it again. And I'm convinced, like I said before, that we're going to all be together in person again, not too long from now, I hope. So anyway, that's it. MikeHagan.com, MikeHagan.com. That's it.
And one last point, this point that you referred to, Mike, that would be mathematically the point of maximum instability,
Mm-hmm.
and we could be rapidly approaching that. So.
Well, thanks, guys. Always a pleasure.
And one other thing. That came and went. So I guess that's it.
So yeah, thanks, guys. I really appreciate you all coming on. And folks, if you're one of the imaginal cells in the caterpillar ooze that is not yet to become, but is on the way of becoming a butterfly, and you're getting attacked by the old caterpillar's immune system trying to prevent its own metamorphosis, count yourself among the non-cocksuckers of the world, because you've actually got something going for yourself, and you're going to inspire and translate that momentum to people around you. And hopefully we can take as many as we can with us to this new world that's coming, whether we like it or not. So with that, guys, I'm going to say my love to you both. You're both a great inspiration to me, have been for years, and we will continue on our trek together down the road with our own exploration of consciousness. Thank you very much.
And much love to all as well.
Thank you, Matt.
Cheers.
I was taken in by Emery Roth and Sons. At that time, it was on 2nd Avenue and 52nd Street.
New York City.
Yeah, New York City. And what they were doing is they were working on the World Trade Center.
72, is that when it was completed?
Well, it was, yeah.
But it began planning back then in 63.
It actually began, it entered the office, I think, in 1962.
Uh-huh.
Now, Emery Roth and Sons in the trade is what is called a pencil, meaning that they don't do design. They simply accept the designs of big-time designers that come in from other areas,
Mm-hmm.
that have buildings where the other person is the architect of record and that sort of thing.
Right.
And so they have a production staff, but they also had to have just simply for show a design group. So I'm going through this routine of say, can you do this? Can you do that? And, and then the guy would say, no, you can't work here. So when I got to that place, I went through the same routine, and they said, okay, put them right in the design group. I said, wow, I'm not realizing what it is I'm going into.
Right.
But so I'm in there for a while, and I'm not doing a thing. I'm just sitting at a drafting board, and so I go up to Mr. Gershon, my boss, and I said, what's happening? Why aren't I doing any work?
Right.
And he said, well, I want you to go back to your drafting board and think great thoughts. Now, that's almost like somebody talking from a comic book mind. I said, what are you talking about? But I went and did that, And eventually Yamasaki showed up. This time.
Now Yamasaki was
Minoru Yamasaki.
Mm-hmm.
He showed up now with a model, because up to this point there were just these scatterings of plans, that were being sent out and examined by engineers in the office and and the like and that kind of stuff. But now the actual model showed up, and it was the most beautiful model I ever saw. Made where it was all plastic and made with those. And at that time it was made with tools that was scaled down, like a buzzsaw. It was a little tiny thing, so that it was, all the parts were perfectly aligned,
right.
But it was totally empty. And he was like so upset about the fact that the Sears Tower in Chicago was also on its way up, which was eventually became higher.
Mm-hmm.
That he was concerned with making sure that they didn't get ahead of him, and so he just left this office to do one basic thing: connect the building into the infrastructure of New York, which meant that we had to design it, meaning we had to put the guts inside the thing.
Right.
And so I'm working along, and I was assigned floors 15 to 45 in Tower 2, and I began to realize immediately that as you had to have 3 banks of 18 elevators to get people to the top, it meant you ate into the space that they were renting very rapidly. So you were ending up
the volume of the elevator shafts, etc.
So you're ending up with places, corridor, and some boiler rooms. When at that time, office landscaping, where you had an open thing where you could have focus groups and all that kind of stuff, was one of the reasons why he sold it as an idea, and it was going fast. And I said to myself, well, maybe if you build bridges every 5th level, you will then have rentable space on the flat. And this would help the structure, because I began to see some things that were going on there that were kind of dangerous. Like they were eliminating asbestos flocking because they wanted to fast track it, meaning they wanted to design and build simultaneously, and he was in a race to get it up.
Right, because of what was happening in Chicago.
Yeah, and
at least partially, yeah.
Oh yeah, but the other problem was at the ground level in the basement, they had to design something that they eventually called a bathtub, where they first sunk into the muck at the end, down by Battery Park.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at a profile of New York, you see the granite block sticks out from the ground up near the Cathedral of St. John. But as you go along the Central Park, it kind of levels out. But then when you get to Canal Street, drops down 75 feet, because that whole area was an alluvial deposit
mm-hmm.
of material from the East River and the Hudson River. And what happened is that they were, when people first came to New York, they came in boats, and they landed there, and they made boat slips, and the inevitable occurred. They started throwing garbage overboard, and then filled it up. So like in Boston, almost all of Boston is filled land, because it used to be a series of little islands, like Beacon Hill's an island,
mm-hmm.
Fort Hill's an island, that kind of stuff. And so then they discovered that they were going to build this monstrous set of buildings on what was muck, and so they decided that they'd try bentonite. That's a colloidal clay that you can drill a hole into muck, and it'll hold it back enough before you throw in some concrete
So you can
and some
set
rebars.
right, you can set.
And then you can get piles that'll go down to that, and they made what they call a bathtub.
Wow.
Now that was part of the that was the main reason why the thing is up or went up, and so that this killed a lot of the construction time where they were trying to hurry. So they started doing things like, instead of welding steel together, they bolted it. And it turns out that those were some of the reasons why it came down.
What did you think when that happened? Holy cow.
Well, I knew exactly why it did. I mean, people talk about Building 7 coming down at the same time. I knew why. Because when I was there were these engineers from Saudi Arabia. There was actually part of the Ben Laban construction company.
Go figure.
Because Yamasaki had worked with them and built them up.
Right, that's a huge billion-dollar construction gang, by the way. Yeah.
Right, and they started in Arabia and worked and worked for Yamasaki, who was doing all kinds of things like in airports, schools, hospitals, doing very, very large projects, and so he just brought them over. And so I see these guys, these swarthy-looking guys walking around, and some of them were asking me, where would you put demolition devices? And I said, well, I'm not really an engineer, but I'm curious as to know why you want to know why you put things in it to demolish it, and it isn't even built. I mean, it was so strange to me. And he said, well, that's the way things are going now. So in a certain sense, the reason why they came down is because the Ben Laban construction company knew exactly where all the
stress points,
the places were that they put demolition devices, because New York.
So you believe it was demolished? It was brought down.
Yeah, well, that in the early 60s and 70s in New York, buildings were going up and down. Like every 6 months, you go away and you come back, there's a new building. So
they built them with charges built into them.
Build it so that it would come down, and so those guys knew the whole story, and so it was very easy for them to to do that, and so it actually came down from extreme capitalism, as wanting to do that, and so at the time that I said that we should put in these various walkways, bridges between the buildings, which would be welded into the middle structure and all that kind of stuff. So everybody in the office said, "Wow, hey, that's a good idea. The things will stay up better."
Right. Yes.
And then so then they said they called up the liaison officer for the Yamasaki's office, and then the next day I got called into the office, and he said, "You're fired," because Yamasaki said, "Oh, what I want is a prism pure visual vibration, in the sky." What he produced was an 11. 11, of course, in numerology is the worst number. It's a number of destruction.